Good afternoon, folks, and thank you so much for joining us. My name is Lauren, and for the purposes of this conversation, I will be serving as the project lead, but I am coming to you live from EDA, Equitable Development Action. We are here to talk with our 245D providers or any folks who are in the home and community-based care setting. To talk to you about recruitment and retention strategies, pardon me. We know that this industry can see a very high turnover of staff. We know that sometimes you spend so much time, or oftentimes you spend a lot of time training and recruiting staff, and then after that, we see them leave, right? So we just wanted to give you some little bite-sized nugget of information to figure out how you can hopefully employ some of these strategies. And if you are already employing these strategies, great, good for you. If not, we're hoping that this can be useful for you. So let's hop right into it. I do have a couple team members that will hop on a little bit later to share some information. But recruitment, what is recruitment? What do we mean? And how does it sort of play into this conversation when we are talking about DSPs? And so I think for almost everybody that is a provider, you're an employer. So you probably will be aware of what we mean by recruitment, right? That is just the process of employing somebody. That is the process of seeking out employers, and particularly for DSPs or direct support professionals, if I may say. That really involves being intentional with where you're going to find these people, right? Where do we find the bodies or the persons that are going to staff these critical roles? And so we wanted to talk a little bit about like those recruitment strategies, and then we'll talk a little bit about retention strategies after. Um, so what's the first thing that you, of course, want to make sure that you're doing to recruit successfully? You want to make sure that you are clear in your mission, right? What is it that you are looking for? But before you even make that ask of a potential employee, what do you stand for? What is your mission and what is your agency or business? What is it looking to do or what is it hoping to achieve? Once you are clear in this, it is easier for someone to see if they are aligned with your business goals, your mission, because it's sometimes easier for someone to say, well, I'm looking for just quick cash, right? If that's what somebody's looking for as a DSP, there's nothing we can do to sort of change their mind about that. But is there a way that your mission might allow for a symbiotic relationship where somebody is, getting an extra job and at the same time you are getting the right type of staff that is a good fit for your agency? And then the other thing that is incredibly important is branding, right? Branding. We are seeing that the evolution of technology and even the evolution of just the landscape of HBCS providers is changing and shifting so quickly that no longer is it enough for you to be able to employ people by word of mouth. We're seeing, especially with this current critical shortage of staff, we're seeing that providers have to now get on LinkedIn, they have to get on Glassdoor, and all these other online platforms where you might try and recruit or source employees. So if you're going to get on there, how do you successfully brand your business, right? How do you brand who you are in a way that if you put an ad on Glassdoor and say ABC Homes is looking to recruit DSPs, is it clear in terms of what this business is? And then is the mission clear as well? Are we very clear in terms of who you are and what you're looking for? This is one of the ways that of course, DSPs, prospective DSPs that might be looking for a job might be able to actually hop on and say, oh, this is something that might be aligned with what it is that I'm looking for. The other thing that I will share is to be intentional. It is critically important to be intentional in terms of it is critically important to be intentional in terms of what it is that you are looking for, but also what you intend to do for the employee, right? Gone are the days where an employer is able to sit back and say, well, I'm giving you a paycheck, right? You want to make sure that you are actually communicating as part of that mission, you are communicating your commitment to supporting DSPs, because we do know that this is a very, very a very task heavy job. We also know that there's extreme high burnout rates in this industry or this line of work. A lot of times DSPs might end up being susceptible to a lot of unforeseen circumstances at the hands of vulnerable adults, right? That might be that they have to work with adults that they have to physically de-escalate. Sometimes they have to mentally, they have to, stretch their capacity to be able to de-escalate. They sometimes are at the receiving end of abuse by vulnerable adults, not because these vulnerable adults choose to, but just because this is the position that they're in. And at times they have no control of how they might be acting and or communicating. So you want to make sure as an employer or prospective employer, you are communicating what your commitment to supporting these DSPs is or will be. If I'm going to take a job as a DSP, I want to know, like, are there some incentives that might be offered? Are you communicating who you are and as an employer in a way that lets me know that I will be safe? Are you communicating in a way that lets me know that I'm not going to have to work double shifts all the time because you don't have employees? Are you communicating something that makes it clear in terms of what my opportunity for moving up look like, right? If I'm coming to you and I don't have a CNA certification, for example, as a DSP, are you potentially going to help facilitate me doing that? Might you even take interest in my ability to further my professional development, or even get certified in some professional way, like a CNA, for example, right? And we know that there are community partners that offer free CNA classes. Sometimes you as a prospective employer could just even communicate that we are willing to help facilitate that process for you, right? That can actually help pique someone's interest in terms of potentially choosing to work with you or not. These strategies, of course, are always going to be in addition to what you are offering. The big question is always going to be, what is the compensation rate? You want to make sure that you are not lowballing anybody, right? And we also understand that as providers, there's only so much that you might be able to compensate, but being human enough to recognize that just as this job is heavy for you as a provider, it is incredibly heavy for the DSP as well. And I think recognizing the humanity and meeting people where they're at to figure out how both parties can win. How could I, as a prospective DSP, be looking for a job that will give me somewhat of a livable wage to the extent possible? And how could you, as an employer, employ me and be able to support me in a way that I show up consistently and I'm also showing up in a way that aligns with your business mission and goals? At this time, I'm going to pause and invite one of my colleagues to come up on stage, and she's going to talk a little bit about some of the offerings that Equitable, particularly if you are a 245D provider or a 144G provider.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Thank you very much, Lauren. Hi, everyone. My name is Oba. I mean, there's always so much to learn on this live sessions anytime we meet like this, and we're really excited for you joining us today. So quickly, I'm just going to speak about Lauren has already spoken about the recruitment strategies for DSPs. And at EDA, we help providers like stay compliant and grow your business and focus on what matters most, which is caring for your clients. So if you're a 245D or assisted living provider, or even thinking about becoming one, this is for you. So like Lauren mentioned earlier, we know that running a care business can be overwhelming, and with all the licensing, paperwork, and regulations. But this is where we come in. So how can we help you? So who do we help basically? We help startups. So if you're just starting, we can guide you through your licensing, your branding, and your business setup. Lauren also mentioned earlier, branding is very key to every business, and EDA has got you at this point. So we also help small to medium providers. You need to improve your efficiency in your business. We can help you with your marketing, your digital presence, and your operations. If you're also a growing agency, right, and you obviously all growing agencies need scaling up, we can offer you tools and strategies to help you expand smoothly. And you're probably wondering that, okay, with all these things that we are saying, how can we help you? We can help you with your training and compliance. So we have the EDA Academy. If you joined us for our live session last week. We spoke about it. So the ED Academy, on the ED Academy, we offer you, free courses to, help you avoid penalties and improve your service quality, especially to your clients, right? And the ED Academy is not just a platform for you to come and take courses and learn. It's also like a community where you can, get firsthand the events that we used to help providers like you. You also get to meet, like-minded providers like yourself to share experiences and talk, how to push through as a provider. Like I mentioned earlier, if you're a startup or you're thinking of being a provider, we can help you with your licensing and setup. You get expert help with us with your applications, the policies, and your business infrastructure in general. Then also, we mentioned earlier, as a provider, you're always busy. You need help basically. So we can help you with virtual assistants and executive support, admin tasks. We got it, scheduling, data entry, and more. We can help you with things like that. We also help you. We have the cost reporting and compliance offerings, the clients referral program. As a provider, you need help connecting with more clients and growing your business. Then we also help with website and branding, custom website, logos, business cards. You just have to come to us and tell us that, oh, this is the vision I have, this is what I have in mind. And all what we do is, we take it up from there and bring your vision and your hopes to life here at EDA. So what you just have to do, my colleagues will be dropping like links in the comment section. All you have to do is, just book a consultation with us. And good for you, we have a 30 minutes free consultation for every provider that reaches out to us. So you get free 30 minutes, to chat about your needs. We offer you advice and what on how you can move forward as a provider, and you can be rest assured that we have custom solutions to every of your need and any of the things that you bring towards forward to us here at EDA. So don't be shy. I'm sure my colleagues are already dropping the links in the chat room, so you can reach out to us and we'll be expecting to hear from you. Thank you very much. Over to you, Lauren.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. So, if you happen to be somebody who is just starting out, you were recently licensed with your 144, recently licensed with your 245, or or you've had this license for a little bit and need a little bit of a push or a booster or support, some of these services that Abba was talking about are what will help get you over the finish line, or hopefully to help you hit your targets and goals in your business. Um, the next thing I'll talk about is retention strategies, right? We know that there's the process of recruiting an employee or prospective employees. And then from there on, we want to make sure that once you have them through the door, you are offering incentives that can keep them there, right? And we also understand that this line of work is very different, right? There's so many unique factors when it comes to home and community-based service providers and that landscape of the business, right? You're a business, and at the same time, you have to be in compliant to MDH or DHS, depending on which license you hold. Be that as it may, when it comes to retention, once you have employed somebody, what can you do or how can you think outside of the box to ensure that your employees or your staff know that they're part of a community, right? One of the things that I have actually worked as a DSP a couple of years ago. And one of the things my former employer did, at least once a quarter, he would give us gas cards, even if it was $20 of gas cards. And that meant so much to us because when you're a DSP, a good chunk of people end up doing this line of work in addition to something else. So sometimes it's not uncommon to see that people work two jobs. Or sometimes people that really need those hours might end up doubling. They work doubles, and so getting a guest card, even if it was for $20, that made a huge difference, right? Because I could just be wrapping up with a client who had been so difficult and it was incredibly draining physically and mentally draining to be able to show up in a way that promotes person-centered care, right? But to end the day with a guest card where my boss is saying, I really appreciate the work that you're doing, that goes a long way, right? That's just an example of retention strategies. And then the other thing that you want to be thinking about is the mental health of your employees, right? We recognize that you are a small business owner, and we recognize that you may not have access to resources like funding in a way that a historically larger organization might. We also recognize, again, the high turnover rate of employees in this industry. But one of the things that you can absolutely do is give the gift of mental health, right? You may not necessarily, as an employer, have the ability to pay for mental health services for your employees, but you can bridge the gap, right? Some of the providers or some of these business owners, some of the business owners under 245D or 144G are nurses. Some of them have healthcare experience, right? A background in healthcare. And so therefore, you might actually already be 5 steps ahead of a DSP in terms of gathering community resources. It's a good idea to be able to pool those resources, and maybe it shows up as an 8.5 by 11 on your notice board that says these are the free community mental health resources available to you. These are the mental health resources on a sliding scale, right? And checking in with your employees periodically, checking in not necessarily just from the HR side of things, but also checking how they're keeping up mentally. That allows you for an opportunity to get to know them a little bit more, but that also allows an opportunity for your employees to find safety, right? Because you don't want people coming to work and consistently feeling burnt out and feeling like they're just a face in the crowd, regardless of how small your team may be. Another thing that is critically important, get to know your staff. Get to know your staff. I have worked as a DSP, as I said, and I've also worked on the managing side a couple years ago. And I have seen both ends where there are employers who are incredibly committed to knowing their staff because they're trying to promote a positive organizational culture, and then there are employees that are so busy and boggled down that they never get an opportunity to see the staff. Um, it's nice for your staff to know who they're supporting, who they're actually working with as they're supporting vulnerable adults in the state of Minnesota, right? So get to know your staff. You might be busy with a lot of things, but when you have new employee orientation, right, which is another thing I'll get into, when you do have things like new employee orientation, if you are removed from the process of operations daily because of the nature of the business, it's nice for you to pop up, show face, and say, hey, this is who I am, this is who you're supporting, right? Let your employees know that your business is also you, but let them see the human behind all of this, right, the success. The other thing is that employee orientation. When you are employing staff, I talked about make your mission clear. On the HR side of things, you of course want to make sure that you have a seamless application form. It's a very easy process for someone to click if you are advertising, for example, on LinkedIn. On Glassdoor, can somebody go 1, 2, 3, click and say, this is the information that is asked of me, and I'm putting it in. The form is easy to navigate, and I submit, right? Once you have your employees through the door, you want to make sure that you go through a clear orientation process with them that lets them know what your expectations are as an employer, what the expectations of the program are, as well as who they're going to be serving or supporting, right, in terms of residents. These things have to be made very clear from the get-go to avoid for confusion, and also to ensure that there is no misunderstanding pertaining to the scope of work that a DSP may or may not have to do. Um, One of the things I have encountered previously when I was doing management work for a program that was licensed at one point 144 and 245D, is that there had been a previous policy that basically says, when you're a DSP, if you are calling in, you're sick or something happens, it is your responsibility to find a replacement. Generally speaking, that is okay, right? However, if you have a life-threatening emergency or a medical emergency, what are the chances that you're also going to be thinking about finding a replacement? Having someone who can support your staff in terms of emergencies, crisis, to ensure that questions are answered, to ensure that service continues, there's no disruption in service. These things are critically important. but they also allow for successful and seamless operation and seamless service delivery to the recipients that are in your residence, right? And at the same time, it leaves your staff feeling like they are supported. You never want a situation, for example, if a staff calls you and says, "Hey, there's a snowstorm outside and my car skidded into a ditch." And then you say to them, "Well, it's your responsibility to find a replacement," right? That doesn't really promote a humanized experience in the workplace. I don't think any of us would like to be on the receiving end of that type of communication when you are faced with something that is life threatening. So, having support staff in addition to the staff that you have, and that can be a manager, for example, right? So, you as the actual program director are not boggled down with the minutiae of having to figure out, how am I staffing this? How am I getting the next person to come up, right? And then when we're talking retention strategies again, people don't think a lot about this, but having little things like snacks available, right? Just being able to have a little snack basket for your staff to say, grab a bar, grab a granola bar while you're working. Sometimes you have staff that is working a double shift, right? It's nice even if they don't ask for it, but it is nice for them to know that, oh, my agency, my employer, or the business that I work for is actively thinking about my well-being, right? Have something like coffee. We know that Minnesota has really long winters and they tend to be cold. Having coffee on tap for your staff is just as great of an option. It's not a lot, but it also shows that you are actually thinking about your staff. Overall, in order to have successful staff and to retain them, we know that the major factor that we cannot really negotiate too much with is that rate of compensation. In addition to that rate of compensation, you want to make sure that you are thinking about how to humanize this process, right? You want someone to wake up every morning and say, you know what, even if I'm not getting the compensation that I know I want right this second, I know that I'm making a difference in the life of somebody. I also know that where I'm making a difference, I'm appreciated, right? So you absolutely want to make sure that you are offering as competitive a rate as possible. This is also what helps you get the cream of the cream, right? You want to be able to access staff that actually may have experience, staff that is coming with some certifications, like a CNA is a common one. Um, the more you're able to offer, of course, the bigger your selection pool becomes. And then from there on, humanize the experience. Don't let it just be, hey, if maybe you have the capacity to pay $25 an hour, don't let it be because I pay my staff 25 an hour, I don't expect them to say anything to me. Continue to work with your staff to understand their barriers, their challenges, and even their successes, right? Because we all improve on feedback. And as things need to be refined, we know that this happens through this process of communication. So let your staff come in, but let them come in knowing and understanding that I'm supported. The person who employs me will listen to me when I have concerns and be committed to supporting them in their success for caring and offering services for vulnerable adults that are being supported in your residence, right? Because at the end of the day, you want to make sure that you are delivering exceptional service. You want to make sure that you are delivering service that is unmatched. You want to make sure that a case manager can walk into your establishment and say, oh my gosh, the staff is trained incredibly well, right? The staff knows what they're doing and the staff is upbeat. You are able to achieve those things through a combination of factors, right? I know I did not touch on or talk about recruitment and retention from an HR perspective. I purposely wanted to lead this conversation in a way that humanizes this role, right? And kind of remind prospective employers, while it's important, yes, to make sure that we are looking for all the things that an HR checklist gives us, it is also important to humanize these roles. And it is also incredibly important to offer up a space where someone can actually say, I could potentially grow from this. I worked as a DSP and then ended up working my way up. And ultimately, I actually fell in love with what I did because of the people who trained me at the time, because of the people who employed me at the time. And there was never a time that I felt as a DSP when I did it that I was unsupported. There was never a time that I ever felt like when I was sick, if I called in, my boss would text, somebody who was in leadership would text and say, "Hey, how are you feeling? We're checking in on you," right? So little things like that can actually help you see longer retention and less turnover rate. And so that's kind of like what we wanted to share with you. Look out for more of these conversations. We may actually add another second portion of recruitment and retention strategies that's going to be focused a little bit more on HR, but you definitely will see more topics that are designed to help you as a provider, designed to help you deliver exceptional service and also be in compliance. Um, and that is all that we have for you at this time, folks. Thank you so very much for taking the time to join us. If there are any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. And I believe that our email was also shared. So absolutely feel free to like reach out to us via email. And like my colleague had mentioned, please feel free to also book that half-hour consultation. It is free of charge to you, and you get access to a team that can help you brainstorm and understand or navigate what success might look like for your business and what hitting those goals look like. Thank you so much